Welcome to Reset with Ball Doggett, a conversation connecting our industry. I'm Zadie Jackson, Business Development Manager for Ball Doggett. Today's episode is very special and very close to home. With me is the lovely Jason Little from For the People and our very own National Marketing Manager, Mr. Tony Bertrand. Gentlemen, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Zadie.
Thanks, Zadie. Thank you.
Good marketing going on behind you, Tony?
It's a great
Sorry?
Good marketing. Apt.
Is it obvious? Right, good.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Right.
And it's a great segue too, Jason, because I'm looking forward to the discussion today, and it's around our own branded Ball Doggett and so many more elements. So before we do get into the Q&A, let's get acquainted with our guests. Jason Little is a designer and co-founder of the design company For the People. They have offices in Sydney and Launceston. Jason is based in the beautiful Tasmania. Jason's worked around the globe and has 20 years experience with some of the largest branding agencies. He's got extensive experience in the areas of arts, culture and placemaking, and his regular involvement with education and mentoring. Mr. Tony Bertrand describes himself as the marketing dude from Ball Doggett, but to us he is much more than that. His experience in the industry spans nearly 30 years, commencing his career at Commonwealth Paper in Leichhardt, Sydney as a fresh 4-year-old, I'm told, gaining a deep understanding of the market through his various tenures in different companies, including Edwards Dunlop Paper, where I personally had the opportunity to work with Tony, moving into Paperlinks, Fuji Xerox, BJ Ball, and now leading the marketing team of Australia's largest supplier of materials with Ball Doggett. Tony's fascination with the customer's journey and how they view Ball Doggett's brand is paramount to leading our team and delivering activations in market. His ability to stay open to change and approach innovation as a benchmark is one of his strengths that the brand benefits from. A unique ability to view a situation through different dimensions is part of his success. Quality communication is key to his success, a mantra Tony lives by. He continues to be amazed how companies in the printing industry take this to the next level. Innovation in print is fundamental to its future. An avid garlic farmer in his spare time who has a passion for all things rural. Nothing better than sitting around an open fire with a glass of wine. I wish we did have wine, gentlemen, but I have questions for you. So let's get into it, shall we?
Yep. Thanks, Zadie.
Thank you. Jason, let's kick it off with you. Tell us how you and your family are, how you've settled in Lonnie, and, how's life in Tasmania treating you?
Life here is pretty good. It's so we moved in September last year. That was right before the world went to shit, if I'm allowed to swear. Because obviously there was the fires in Sydney, so we missed out on all of that smoke in the air, and then the current situation happened, and so Tasmania's already isolated. I guess being here, not really it's been challenging, but equally. We'd already moved, me and Joe had already moved, we were already working remotely with the team in Sydney. So essentially the last several months have all been the same for us, although we are working from home at the moment. And it's good, not to let the secret out, but Tassie's pretty good. We have the forest right behind us.
Amazing.
A couple of minutes away. I go walking, I sometimes I started mountain biking, why wouldn't you, in Tasmania? Take the dog on go for 2 1-hour walks a day in the forest. There's roos around, possums, fog, it's icy cold, it's a proper cold winter. And I get 6 hours of time with our baby daughter, she's 2, every day, rather than Sydney, which was 1 hour before she went to bed because of the commute and things. So it's a very different life, Tassie is so much of a community. People are just so nice here. So yeah, can't rave enough about how beautiful the place is, the people, the community, and how easy life is here.
Oh, that's amazing. And I think you've described quite a few things that between Tony and I, we're quite jealous of, forest baking. And I know when I do come down to Tasmania to see our amazing clients, it's like a warm hug every time we go anywhere. So I'm very pleased you guys have settled in. Mr. Bertrand, how are you? What's happening with you? How are you finding the market? What's standing out for you right now?
Well, I'm fantastic.
Good.
Thank you for asking, Zadie. Look, life is, there's no doubt there's a few challenges around in the market at the moment. But I think, really, I mean, if you stop and have a think and look at what's going on, I mean, there's so much opportunity out there too. So I think, as an industry, as an economy, I mean, we've got to remain resilient. I mean, we can't all live in Tasmania like Jason is and sort of, taking all these wonderful walks and all that, which I'd love to do, but some of us have to keep the country going. So, but you've got to remain positive, and I think there is a lot of opportunity out there. It's amazing that you're seeing businesses sort of, in some degrees, pivot and do things differently. Some of the businesses that haven't, from what I can see in the marketplace, I think they were in this position even before COVID. So I don't think COVID's done them any favours, but it certainly hasn't made them do things any differently either. So, the guys who are really doing well in the market, the ones who are being agile, they're taking a different approach. They're actually, working out customer solutions. That's what we're seeing, and that's what I'm seeing, and I'm talking to people out there. And there's a cautious optimism, if I can put it that way. Yeah. For those people who are really positive about the future, I think it's bright. I think there's some real pockets of opportunity out there. You've just got to be thinking about where they are and what you can do with them. So, absolutely, all good.
Well, you've kicked off some good themes there about resilience and remaining optimistic, but also making sure you're able to be agile enough to adapt and pivot as right now, globally, it's dictating it, right? It's out of our hands. Jason, just touching on what your perception of the feeling in the creative community is right now.
Well, I'm a bit distant from the creative community, from mainland, I guess. I would say, I think everyone has taken way more time to talk to each other. Like usually, one of the phrases I hate the most when people ask, how are you? It's like, oh, really busy. Because that's what everyone says that. And now I don't feel like that's the answer. I feel it's like, how are you? And then everyone actually takes the time to go, well, this is hard, or this is going well. There's way more depth in the way people are communicating. Me and Tony caught up a couple of weeks ago, right, Tony? And Tony talked my ear off when I asked how he was doing. But like,
it's supposed to be a private conversation, John.
but no, I think everyone is finding it a big challenge. I think the early days of working from home and remotely, everyone also was like had enough. Now people are starting to go, actually, I'm suddenly cooking myself lunch rather than buying takeaway. I'm taking a break, or I'm doing yoga at home in front of the TV. There's people are starting to adapt. I think the creative community, it was weird up until, so we do a lot of place branding-y stuff, councils and cities and regions and things. And the amount of tenders prior to end of July, end of financial year, were through the roof. I felt like we were doing a tender every few days. And that was like, actually, are we not in a recession? Like, all of a sudden there's all this work, and obviously that's a great commitment from government to be putting all those briefs out there. I also noticed that so someone in one of the owners of Holzbosch, Jade Holzbosch, he reached out to all the business owners and founders of all the agencies in Sydney, a lot of the bigger ones, so Principles, Frost, Houston, us, and a bunch of others, and basically hooked everyone in on an email, went, hey, I know times are tough, thought it would be good to connect with everyone and just kind of keep a conversation going and kind of just check in. And I thought that was a really nice thing to happen. And I then hooked in a bunch of other people into it as well. I'm sure others did. And Interbrand were in it as well. And there's loads. I mean, the list was like that, and I just thought it was awesome that people are actually taking the time to go, hey, just checking in with you, how you're doing. And that's been really nice. I know that Vince then from Frost then took organized a bunch of people going out to a pub when, I don't know when they could, but they hit the pub a couple of weeks on Friday to have a proper chat in person.
Oh, that's terrific. Cool.
So yes, I'm loving that it hopefully is sparking this kind of more kind of empathy approach to each other rather than competitiveness and kind of ego-driven side of things that sometimes can plague our industry. And it was like almost like setting aside any silly differences or something around each other and just going, hey, we're all people, how are we doing? And that's been really good. So I've really enjoyed witnessing that, being part of that, and so far so good. We haven't had to reduce our staff. We haven't had to reduce the hours, and we're as busy as ever. And from what I've got from most other studios, they're the same, although everyone is super uncertain of what's coming. And when you look at the news and what's going on, you kind of like the world, like it sounds so doom and gloom that's coming that I think everyone is just a bit uncertain about what to expect.
I think there's so much, and thank you for that, such a transparent answer in the sense, starting off with Jade at Holzbosch, I've met him a few times, as we've spoken about before, and to actually create something that's about community and spirit, and as you said, checking in with people, I think it's probably one of the most powerful things that we can offer each other right now. And I think that's terrific. And sort of leading into what you tapped in there, you guys are busy and your teams are already working from home as it stands. How have you guys navigated the communication channels and working with clients and things like that? I know we've all had to adapt, and there's been Zoom and Microsoft. How have you guys done the practical elements of communicating with your clients?
Is that you moving around, Tony? There's a lot of noise being generated.
I haven't moved once. I'm sitting very still.
Bill, what you just said, Zadie, Tony, is a lot of your business not in-person kind of dealings? So like how are you guys coping, I guess, more around that? Because you have to, I feel like you're always on the road.
Yeah, look, and we've had to change. We're not visiting customers at the moment, our print customers, for their safety and for ours. So there's a huge. At the beginning of this, we had to make a shift, and of course we're using Zoom, and we're using email, and we're using other forms of communication. So it's been, at the beginning it was a bit of a challenge. Now it's sort of, how creative can we be? In terms of how do we connect with our customer and continue with that without having that face-to-face opportunity that we've been so used to for so many years. So although it's caused some angst in the early days, I think now we're kind of used to it, and we're kind of a little bit more confident, I suppose, with the way in which we're communicating with customers. So for us, it's been it's been good. All of our salespeople, in terms of productivity levels, have gone up because, of course, they're not spending a lot of time driving around in cars, and that's been an improvement. I think in terms of us being able to connect more with customers. I pick up on your comment earlier, Jace, which I think is really important. I've known, and we've all known people within the industry for a long time. I don't think I've connected with people at a deeper level than I have during COVID-19 with the customers. And that's when I think it becomes important and much more evident that, where a lot of us are facing similar challenges, and by working together, we can actually come up with better solutions. And the conversations I've shared with lots of people, that I've had with lots of people and shared those with others, have all said, I find myself in a similar situation. How are you guys dealing with it? So that ability to talk to one another at a deeper level, as you said, I think has been a revelation for a lot of us. I think we've learned a lot through this period, and then that's been refreshing for me. It's just sort of like, I've learned so much from talking to our clients about what they're facing, and how they're dealing with things, and it's been really good, actually. It's been an exercise.
There's an interesting side of things where I think in the business world, like the way we conduct ourselves in person and with our friends and our home life and all that is often different, or perceived different, to how we do it in a work context. And obviously those barriers have gone because everyone's working from home.
Absolutely.
And are exposed in their pajamas and their dog running around or the kids screaming. And so everyone's got way more empathy. And I think like there is like if you take a snapshot of say our creative industry, there is a perception, I'm sure it is in the print industry as well, around there's a perception of who's doing good, what they're like. You know, we know people through their work that they do, or kind of like a talk that they've done or something they've written. Yeah. And so it's kind of like looking at someone's social media and thinking you know what their life is and how they're going, when actually you have a very fake veneer of the reality. And so so there's this projection of what we think people are like or what businesses are doing. So one studio might be like, they're so successful. And then, you know, the undercurrent of it is they're about to go bankrupt. They just have nice work, you know, or vice versa. It's like they're flush, you know, and, but like we all have these mismatched judgments and assumptions around each other. And I think, as you're saying, Tony, like this ability, especially in the last 6 months, has been to go, well, actually, let's get rid of that and let's be truthful with each other and friendly and kind. Yeah. And if we can be more kind than ever, like it, you know, will it spawn a kind of a better understanding of each other and a better industry across industries? Now that we have because I think actually me and Zadie were talking about this recently of like, this whole ordeal has meant you've had to put your own thing, like desires and needs aside for the larger, for the human population, for the world. You know, your selfishness has implications on others. And so that kind of selflessness or need to actually consider others has been really powerful, I think.
I think you're right, Jason. I think there's also this sense of, and I know the ladies in the previous episode, Carol McKay mentioned the fact that the masks have now been taken down. It doesn't matter the stature that you are within an organisation. You are in your t-shirt and your baseball cap, or you're in a jumper, but you're having the same level conversations. No one's tucked away in a boardroom with a closed door. The transparency is there. And I think with anything generically, from a human-centered perspective, authenticity comes from that too. And that's where the opportunity lies also, yeah? I think it's exciting, and I love the optimistic experience that you're sharing with us right now, because it's the mindset I think that we put towards no matter the challenge or the crisis. And I think if we move into what I think is going to be really a fascinating discussion right now about our brand, Tony Bertrand, this one's for you. You know, we merged August the 2nd, 2017, two extremely well-respected brands in BJ Ball and KW Doggett. And the responsibility for you was quite enormous, having to celebrate, you know, not only capturing legacies that over 100 years worth, I might like to add, but really celebrating the culture, as Jason alluded to earlier, the staff, the customers, and how we were able to demonstrate this rebrand of a merged business into a market in Australia and New Zealand, but also on a global stage. What was important for you in your role when you were looking at a creative agency, and why did you choose For the People?
Look, I mean, it was an amazing time. You know, when we were merging these two businesses together, I mean, it was... as you say, it was. I felt a huge sense of responsibility because, you know, there was enormous amount of brand equity in those two businesses. You know, KW Doggett was an outstanding organisation and had a great reputation. You know, BJ Ball was sort of that entrepreneurial business that had done growth through acquisition for so many years, and you know, had sort of forged sort of a leadership position in the market. So when you brought those two brands together, they were in a way very different, and they had their own strengths and their own qualities. For me, it was all about maintaining the reputation of those businesses. You know, that really for me was, we don't want to create something necessarily totally new, but at the same time, because we wanted to maintain the reputation, you know, we wanted to maintain the intangible. That thing that made the glue, it's the glue that makes everything stick together, that you can't pick up and say we'll move it from, you know, Dandenong to, you know, somewhere else, or we won't move it from, you know, Prospect to somewhere else. It's something that you can't pick up and actually see, but it's there, and you need to maintain that. And I think that came from the people as well of those organisations, you know. So a great, rich family history within KW Doggett.
Yes.
And of course the sort of the entrepreneurial view of the people leading the BJ Ball business. So bringing that together was really important that we understood, or the agency we chose sort of understood that. And I suppose, you know, we went down, you know, we wanted to. I've always wanted to work with Jason, and he's been a sort of a superstar when it comes to what he does. And I've never met someone who's more, I suppose, down to earth in a lot of ways. I remember mentioning it to a friend of mine that I knew Jason, and they were like, "So can you introduce me to him?" And I was like, "Well, what do you mean? I mean, it's just like a normal bloke." And they're like,
"He's just Jason.
He's really cool. The stuff he does is unbelievable. Can you introduce me to him?" So I was like, "Sure." I felt really good. You know, I was like, "Oh, you know, it's my mate." So, but
that's very flattering, by the way, Tony.
No, but it's true, and it's true. It's a true story, and so it was really good to. Well, the thing was that I'd known Jason, knew Damien for years before we engaged them as our rebrand agency, and we wanted to make sure that, you know, and for me it was a simple decision because Jason understood our business. He also understood the Doggett's business as well as the BJ Ball business. So I think that went a long way to ensuring that, you know, for deciding that they were the agency we needed to go with. And it was brilliant. I mean, right from the beginning of that process, the engagement that they had within the business was really. I mean, we learned stuff at that time that we would never have learned had we not engaged Jason and Damien to do that. So, you know, I'll let Jace talk a little bit more about the project, but it was right from the beginning. It was fantastic. It took some time, but all good things do, and now we're here today as a you know, Australia's largest distributor in the marketplace. Ball and Doggett, well known, hopefully well respected. I'd like to think that we do the right thing by our customers. We build trust with our customers. That's important for me. So it's been a great journey, and I you know, I'm very proud of the fact that we shared it with Jace, or actually Jace let me share it with, you know, let us share our brand with him, so he could take it on.
And I think the timing's quite great too, because we're going into our 3rd anniversary shortly on August 2nd, for us to be having this discussion, which is pretty cool. Jason, I mean, your reputation precedes yourself, and you're such a humble guy, so I'm going to celebrate that for you. You know, if we look at, for instance, you know, City of Melbourne as an example, you know, having a look at the development of that and the challenges around that at the beginning, you know, with the cohesion of the brand strategy and trying to create this really cool, sophisticated global brand, you know, that could sit on a global stage. You know, it's about cohesion and building brands and making it one. And then having a look at Ball and Doggett's brief. What did you and your team start with? What was the critical thinking around the development of the brand for you guys?
Well, actually, also, I just want to say there are many agencies that could have done this work. Like, there's so many great studios in Australia, and I think anyone would have, with the scale of the project, there's a certain amount of stuff that you have to understand. Like, there was 2 cultures. Like, you've got BJ Ball, you've got KW Doggett, family owned. A more diversified business with BJ Ball. You've got very different approach to things. I think the one thing that, like, so I've known Tony for ages, and believe me, we were stoked to get the work. Like, it was a cool thing. It was a cool thing for me to also personally feel like it was a project that I was able to bring into the agency as like my relationship. So I was extremely excited by it. There's a really interesting connection between organizations like BJ Ball and KW Doggett, which is the relationships that you have with people in those businesses, because they're like that with the creative industry. Everyone were like, you know, when I moved to Australia 20 years ago, I think I was dealing with Yasmin from Raleigh.
Yeah,
who's
Yasmin
the main
Chong.
part of BJ Ball, and then Scott, who's her husband, became the rep when Yasmin went on maternity leave. And so I've always had those relationships with people in kind of paper companies, not that you're just paper, but at the time. And so it was great to then get to know Tony and then all of that along the, so it's been like, I think it was like a 15-year engagement to get the work maybe, because, and I guess that's just about being nice to each other again and having good relationships with people and respect. And then, you never know when, like, I would never have thought you would have been a client of mine, 15 years ago. So, so you've got these two cultures. Tony put us forward. I don't know who Catherine put forward. Catherine was Tony's equivalent at KW Doggett in terms of role. And then she led the project, having just returned from maternity leave. And that was also really awesome because I had to then develop a relationship, me and the team, with Catherine, I've referenced this relationship with you guys a lot because I used to love it. Like it transcended what I think is a business relationship. Catherine would call me up at like 5 o'clock on her way home, tell me about what her kids did that day.
That's fantastic.
And I love that kind of side of things, that you don't need to, you're not calling a client for anything more than just to see how they're doing in life. And which is back to what we're at now. With
Absolutely.
So anyway, it was lots of stakeholders, lots of challenges. And then, and obviously we had to manage both expectations and the name. There was a lot of attachment to names and stuff like that. But ultimately, like the whole identity came around because you've got a diversified business. Mm-hmm. You've got more products than paper. You have inks. You have wide format printing. You have the plastic punnets that strawberries come in. Like very different audiences, and it kind of made sense to build an identity that moved away from a print and craft place towards a materiality and an understanding of the diversification, and then starting to create an identity that could then take on many personas, like City Melbourne did, but so that it could meet all the different needs and be relevant to the different customers that you were dealing with, which, the creative industry was maybe 10% of that specking paper for their print projects, and then the other 90 were like the printers or the direct to clients or things. So it was really that, but ultimately it was from getting to interviewing, talking to different people within the organization and externally, and also let's be clear, it's not just me. Like, we have Damien, who's like ex-CEO of Interbrand. He's an incredible powerhouse in
he's amazing.
Strategy. Yeah. And then you had Amanda Gordon, who was our strategy director. And then the team, you've got like James Gilmore, who's the creative director of Design Studio. Design Studio, one of the world, Airbnb. So you have James Gilmore, you had Ollie Bustle, who was from the Partners, who, again, Catherine kind of just had this great relationship with Ollie, the designer, just called him whenever. You had Mel, our creative director in Sydney. You had I'm missing someone, Ed, who was ex-Interbrand, and Bailey Nelson. Like, you had basically these really good people on this project, and so and all of them had relationships and dealings with everyone on both client side, on both agency side, as in from KW Doggett and BJ Ball. So yeah, it was a cool project, a lot of fun, and and ultimately we knew that you irrelevant of what the design is going to be, you've got two cultures coming together, and if it can't help facilitate that merging and bringing together, then it's not going to work anyway. So it was as much the internal culture stuff of like, what can we do to help communicate internally, and how do you bring it together, and working with people within the organization, as the actual brand identity for an external audience.
That's a really great comment, actually, because if you're looking at merged businesses, the success of them are based on culture and people. And I think, and I speak from personal experience, I think the brand that you guys delivered for us gave us that experience and opportunity to do that culturally, and I think it was executed. But the wealth of experience that was on this project, as you just mentioned, it was only ever going to be successful in my eyes. And because, you know, Catherine, with her vast experience in the market and her amazing charismatic, you know, personality, she was always going to blend and create something that was something for longevity, you know. And between her and Tony, I think they executed that.
There was another thing that so Tony, you've worked with Dom when he had his studio, and you've worked with loads, like you as an organization and the people within it and your marketing, and you've worked with most agencies, right, at some point or another. Yeah. And all of them are incredibly brilliant and capable and can do anything. And so even when we were doing the very first stuff to roll out, it was important that we didn't do it, but say the company you keep did it, or someone else. And it was because it's also, you don't want to be like, when you get to do a project like this, there is a bit of like, well, how come they got to do it? And that's not fair. And so we were really conscious that the relationships, everyone has a relationship with you guys, in which case everyone needs to have the opportunity to work with the brand in one way or another and interpret it the way they see. And so that was, some of the initial rollout wasn't done by us, it was done by other companies deliberately, because there has to be that kind of
connection,
collaborative connection, and feeling like it.
And thank you for bringing that up. You're right, because we value the creative community so deeply here in Australia, because they're so brilliant. And I think what an exciting time we all went through, because, you know, the relationships were being built. There was something new coming into market at a time that the industry needed it too, you know, from a sustainability. Was Tony, you or Jason on this one, was there anything through the process that you struggled with, or that was a bit something, you know, like something difficult to overcome, obstacles?
Look, there's nothing that sort of comes to mind straight away, except for the many debates we had on our name. So that was an interesting discussion that we had, but and for a variety of reasons, and I think Jason alluded to this connection that people had within the business around the history of those organisations and the equity that those brands had. So that's probably the only thing that springs to mind. That was, I suppose, we had more than a few conversations about it. Most of everything else was resolved fairly quickly.
There was a phase, right, of naming.
Sorry?
There was a phase of naming that went...
That's what it was. It was really interesting. And look, you know, we came up with some very interesting names during that process. But look, we ended in a great spot. You know, the Ball Doggett name is continues, I suppose, in the fact that it's a joined name now, but it represented for people who look at that, you know, whatever happened in their experiences with KW Doggett or their experiences with BJ Ball, and now it's you know, I'd like to think that we're taking the best of both of those businesses. Absolutely. And putting them forward in the marketplace, so that our customers have a confidence that they know that we've got the right products, the right services to help them be successful. So, I mean, that's why we exist. And I mean, the whole reason for our being is to help our customers be successful, and that comes through trust. So, and then those brands, you know, we feel we're trusted brands in the market, and hence the name Ball and Doggett, I think, is appropriate.
I appreciate your very poignant comment, and I agree with those. Now, clearly, we're living through some really extraordinary times at the moment. The last 5 months is, you know, you just have to turn on the news or listen to the radio. From our brand's perspective, what does the evolution of our brand look like potentially? Where do we go from here? Jason, Tony?
I don't know, to be honest. Tony, you tell me.
It's a good question, Zadie, and I think you know, our position statement at the moment is about being Australia's largest distributor of printable material and consumables. You know, that's our position. That's what we do. That's who we are. I think what happens with our brand is that it evolves, and it evolves as our business evolves.
Yeah.
We see lots of opportunities in the marketplace. We have lots of suppliers from all over the world. We have lots of customers here in Australia and New Zealand and other parts of the world as well. So I think as our business evolves, our brand evolves, and that's through the growth and diversity. And we talked about the diversification strategy that we employed 3 years ago hasn't changed. That's going to continue, and through that diversification comes growth. So we'll continue down that path. I think the other point that Jason made is a really important one. I mean, we work with lots of design studios and agencies across Australia, and our brand will continue to develop. The look and feel of it will continue to develop. And it's interesting because, I mean, Jason sort of set the foundation with the work that For the People did. And through that, we've now built different parts of the brand. And that's not necessarily been work that For the People have done, but it's also been that collaborative work that other studios have done as well. So I see that continuing as our brand develops, but the fundamentals are still there for me. It's about trust. It's about confidence. It's about, meeting customer expectation on what we do. And that's what our brand has to be. And that will hold us through good times and bad times.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can establish that as a brand. That's our sustainability element. That will keep us in good stead as we move forward. Even though we're in difficult times at the moment, this too shall pass, as they say, and we will move on to better things.
And I think we knew when we would. If you take the time when we worked on this project, there were already big changes happening. There were already big changes happening on the purchase of paper, the amount of print. Step back 15 years ago, there was so much print work being done, and so there was already a transformation in kind of the industry. And I know you, Tony, we were talking at the time around different tools. The brand was moving into a digital space as well, not just in terms of managing kind of the evolution of the print industry and kind of the materials for that, but also the systems in place for for ordering. And you guys had some innovative tools around how much material printers had on the floor and the ordering systems and all that. And those are all based on the kind of the needs and experience and the evolution of technology that is impacting what the brand needs to do to stay relevant. And so all of those things, as you said, shift, and the organization will have to adapt as changing consumer needs kind of dictate new developments. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. But I want to step into something else now. We've spoken about our brand at length, and it's created some nice depth for viewers. So thank you to you both for that. But from a perspective of what brands are doing now, Jason, if you could just, share your perspective on this, or what they should be doing now to sustain their equity, given that we are in this cycle of unknown.
So I can't begin to be an expert in this. I would say there's a lot of, you can go online, LinkedIn, any of those things, and just see your brand must create greater connection with your audiences. It must do this classic kind of marketing kind of communication about being more there for relevant for your audience. I think most brands just have to understand the changing landscape of behaviors and the way we operate, and being cognizant of that. And then, and also, there's a massive shift to online. The digital revolution has kind of accelerated rapidly. So what are the implications for that? The authenticity piece, Tony talked about authenticity briefly earlier. More people are looking for that. So you're gonna there's so much fake stuff and kind of veneer. So people are looking to trust more. What I think there's been a thing happening over the last 5 or 6 years anyway, or longer, which has been way more collaborative approaches to projects. I mean, it's been over a decade or so, but like we are seeing like organizations lean on multiple people and skills and things to kind of, like, you're getting a lot more artistic collaborations, you're getting a lot more multiple agency collaborations, and I think it's being open. You said it again earlier, it's open to the changes, Tony. And just not kind of sticking your head in the sand and going, this isn't going to affect us. Also, actually, I was chatting to a client yesterday, just grabbing a coffee, and they were there, and they were just like, oh, can you give us some thoughts on what to do? We're kind of questioning everything at the moment. We're questioning our purpose. We're questioning what we do. We're like, we feel like how do we get more involved? There is all these movements. There's the Black Lives Movement. There's the fires. There's the COVID. I mean, there's been 3 huge cultural movement shifts in the way we perceive the world. Even though there's still climate deniers and all that, but like I think when you look at what's going on in the world, everyone is and with all this time to reflect at home and feel like lost, everyone is going, how do we do more? How do we get involved more? How do we make our time on this earth count? And how do we make not for any, like, not for show, hey, we're involved in this because we want you to think we care. People are actually genuinely interested in using their businesses or the things that they do in life to help contribute to something more purposeful. That would be the biggest shift for me that I've seen. And that conversation yesterday was, it was just like, whoa, actually. And also we're seeing, we were talking with Kangaroo Island recently, who called us up about post-fire and like recovery.
Yeah. Wow.
So, and actually we get a lot of calls from different regions at the moment about like, what do we do for recovery? How do we get tourists back? How do we get visitors back? How do we revive our decimated industries that the fires took? There's a lot of renewal and people going, what do I do? How do we solve these heavy problems that have kind of hurt a lot of people, and what can we do to kind of make it right? So I guess that's where I see things happen.
I think you're right, and also there's time now to sit back and actually have these really hard kind of conversations with yourself as either the design director or the creative director, whatever the case is, but or marketing manager. We've got time rather than this on-demand experience we've all been used to. So the authenticity, I mean, it's been a theme throughout this conversation. Authenticity and driving change is actually quite a powerful opportunity that can come out of this experience that we're going through. But gentlemen, just to wrap up, I think something that is very important for the future of our industry, I'd love to get your position on how we best can support graduates coming out of their third year graphic design degree, visual comms degree. There is a position where there may not be as many roles as there was last year. What are your thoughts, Tony? You want to kick off for us? Also
from marketing, Tony, like what do you guys do? Yeah, broader field, right?
Exactly.
Well, it is. I mean, it's the greyness now, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of things morphing into or joining, and you have to be somewhat skilled at a variety of different things. But look, I think it's very important. Graduates, I think they're an important part of what makes our industry our industry. There's no doubt that the technology has driven a lot of graphic designers into other forms of design, and that's going to continue. There's no moving back, I suppose, to more of a paper print centric type designer. I mean, these days you need to be a multidisciplined designer across digital as well as across graphic design. I think supporting these people is really important. I think supporting them, and this goes out to work that the lovely Zadie's been doing. In the fact that the universities, the colleges, the ones that are investing in providing the education to graduates, and how industry can then get behind that and support it. And as I say, I mean, Zadie's been doing some excellent work in that space, where we've connected, and through Zadie, connected Ball Doggett to these organisations and said, how can we help? How can we support? What can we do to introduce people to this wonderful world of graphic design and print? Which is the backbone of what we do. I mean, print, although we have diversified our business, I mean, print is a very significant part. Printing on paper is a very significant part of our industry. So we need to do that more. It's difficult because everyone is always looking for more funds in order to be able to support these initiatives. But we're talking about people's future. I mean, it's the creative industry. The creative industry, the arts industry, all of these industries get a very bad time usually when crisis hits. And we need to, as an industry, come out and support that, and I know AGDA's been doing some great work in the space with youth councils and getting people involved. We as an organisation, I mean, one example, we had an intern program at Ball Doggett for 10 years where we employed young graduates who had finished their degree in visual comms, and we gave them real world experiences to be able to design and get involved with our brand. And all of those designers are all of our friends today. So they've maintained the connection with our brand and with the people within our organisation. So it's fantastic because I see these people sort of going along their career from the support that organisations like we've had on them at their early age, and now they're out there doing some great work, working with some great agencies and design studios, and it's wonderful to think that we've played a role in making sure, in a little way, very small way, but it's about making a difference. And if we continue to make that difference by supporting it, we will see the benefits of that later on. So I think from an industry point of view, we've got to look at this and continue to support wherever possible. Funds allowing, business allowing, all that sort of stuff, but very much a positive step from industry to support young graduates of the creative industry.
Thanks, Jason.
I was just going to say, from Tony's thing around internships, I think it's hard, especially right now with remote working, but like we've got an intern, we're taking on another one next week, who were working remotely. We had a couple from Tassie right when the pandemic hit that were with us and then went and worked remotely. It's hard, but I think we have to remember that like we have a potential for an entire generation of designers to not get experience, or creatives or anyone to get the experience in the career that they studied, and because of the situation end up in another role. And that means there could be some very gifted people out there who just were not given that opportunity to become who they should be. I'm sure they'll become something else equally great, but it means then that we should, I know internships are hard, but we should be going, what can we do? Whether even there's like a small stipend to like a small fee cost, if you can't afford to pay properly, like, I think it's just, everyone's got to do their bit to ensure that we don't waste an entire generation of creatives. And so I'd recommend wherever possible, find ways. And then you've got people like Christopher Doyle, who runs the This Is Not a University program. There are studios out there that are taking it upon themselves to figure out mentoring programs, to do things for the benefit of graduates and up and coming creatives. We won a prize last year from Design Tasmania for West Coast work, and that came with like a 5K prize, and we haven't used it yet, but that's been set aside, and we're working with the West Coast Council to give that to local kids in the West Coast who have very difficult opportunities to creative careers are not something that they get the chance to, there's a lot of generational and unemployment and things. And so there's a photography competition happening, and we're probably going to allocate about 3K of that to prizes. Maybe we buy cameras, but how do you help kids enter or get into something that they might not have otherwise had an opportunity with? So I think it's like, whatever you can do it, because there's a whole bunch of youngsters waiting, needing support.
Oh, look, absolutely. And I think the mentoring is such an experience for both the mentee and mentor. You know, there's learnings going from both ways, but I actually think it's our responsibility to do it. You know, that's part of parcel of handing over the baton, because it's about the sustainability of our industries. And I think that's the power in what we can actually deliver. So,
we're only as good as the opportunities that were extended to us by someone or some organization.
And that's a great way to end up, Jason. I completely agree with you. Gentlemen, thank you so much for a great discussion, and one that I know our viewers are going to be gaining some great learning from.
Lovely. Thanks very much for having me.
Thanks, Eddie. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Jason.
Look, guys, thank you so much. Jason, from us, we wish you continued success and all the best for your family. As I said, can't thank you enough, and it's been terrific for you to join us here on Reset with Ball Doggett. Tony, as always, a pleasure, sir. Thank you. Your perspective.
Thank you.
Always enlightening. Thank you to our viewers who continue to support our series, and thank you so much for the feedback that we've been getting on email and via text and phone calls. That has been very welcoming. And as you guys know, with all our guests, we do ask the one question: what does optimism look like to you and your business right now? If you have a moment to look in the description below of this video, you will see the answers from Tony and from Jason. Until next time, I'm Zadie Jackson for Ball and Doggett, and stay well. Thank you, gentlemen.